It's not about the quality, it's more about the quantity that I'm looking for them, because, and I stress to them the importance of making mistakes. Like, risk takers make the best linguists, and that's something that you definitely have to try to make the children understand, because it's something that's very unnatural, I think, to people, is to be willing and like wanting to make mistakes. And especially because that's just not what they would be used to in school, that there is a formula, there's correct, there's right and there's wrong. Whereas it comes to language, it's, you know, it kind of turns that upside down. Okay, well, yeah, I've actually only ever taught in English medium schools. I've never taught in a Gael school or a school Gaelbhratach at all. And it definitely has its own challenges. But the biggest thing, like the first thing that I would have kind of thought of is extrinsic motivation. I know intrinsic motivation, so the children be self-motivating, is great, but you have to be able to get them to that point. So kind of, I often find that I would start with extrinsic motivation. So the biggest things that I would do would be, like, I have junior and senior infants, for example, and I've had fifth class, and I do all the same, I do all the same things with it doesn't matter what age group or what class I'm working with. It works the whole way up or the whole way down. The first thing I always do, and I know a lot of people do, is I have a Gaeilge Ní Chiosáin. And what I always stress with my classes when I begin teaching in the school year is that Gaeilge Ní Chiosáin, or any kind of prizes or points for Gaeilge, it's not about how good it is, it's about the person who's trying their hardest to use it the most. You know, it's not about the quality, it's more about the quantity that I'm looking for them, because, and I stress to them the importance of making mistakes. Like, risk takers make the best linguists, and that's something that you definitely have to try to make the children understand, because it's something that's very unnatural, I think, to people, is to be willing and like wanting to make mistakes. And especially because that's just not what they would be used to in school, that there is a formula, there's correct, there's right and there's wrong. Whereas it comes to language, it's, you know, it kind of turns that upside down. So again, so yeah, I would do Gaeilge Ní Chiosáin. I have like a dojo point system. So if somebody comes up and says like Gormaga to me at my desk, like, it can be literally nothing, even if they use one word. If they're coming up asking for a piece of paper and I say, which one do you want? They say Gurm, they get a point straight away for that. So it's just about like instant gratification for the first while. And then of course, like, praise from the teacher, you know, and that, I suppose all of it depends on what your relationship is with the children, but I would praise them to the high heavens for any Gaeilge that they use. I make a huge song and dance about it, and it works with the junior classes. It kind of works with the senior classes as well, because who doesn't want to be kind of getting praise like that from the teacher? Another thing that I always do is that I think is extremely important is to show passion for a subject. I remember an inspector telling me that before, that if you are excited and passionate about a subject, you will bring the children along with you wherever you choose to take them. So if you show passion for a subject, they will go with you. And, you know, talk about how, if you talk about how something is your favorite, like I always say to them, oh my God, Gaeilge is my favorite thing to do in the world. You know, kids will sometimes ask you, what's your favorite thing in school? And I say, well, I love doing Gaeilge. Like, you know, and they want to do well depending on what their relationship is with you, of course. You know, they'll want to not copy you, but like to emulate you in the sense of like, oh, Múinteoir's favorite topic is that, it's actually mine as well. Do you know what I mean? And then obviously I use a ton of Gaeilge neamhfhoirmiúil. I think that's the most important thing. I think it's I would say way more important than kind of rote learning or anything like that, is Gaeilge neamhfhoirmiúil, because they don't notice that they're using it themselves, and it's just the natural way of learning language, I suppose. And then I would use, again, folklore, the folklore Gaeilge when it comes to certain subjects, or I would be doing certain subjects trí Gaeilge as much as I can. There's some subjects that lend themselves to that better than others. On Canis Mo Úsáid me, and this probably would be no surprise because I'm sure a lot of people do the same as Ceol. I think that Ceol is one of the best vehicles to be able to teach Gaeilge. This would be something that I would have used for myself when I was a child. When my parents were teaching me French, I would often listen to French music, and because children will be picking it up and singing along, they don't need to understand everything that they're saying, because there will come a time, then it could be a week later, a month later, a year later, where they hear the word and they say, where did I hear that before? Oh yeah, that was in that song. And then they make that connection. And it's also a fantastic way to work on their pronunciation, better than rote learning or anything. Well, it is a form of rote learning, but that they're using the right pronunciation, and that they're learning folklore nua that they wouldn't necessarily be coming up with themselves. Another one that I use, and this of course depends on the ethos of your school, but I work in a Catholic school, so I do all my prayers through Gaeilge. I find it's the easiest way to get learning the padracha, because it's there's nothing saying that we have to teach them in English, so I always do all the prayers as Gaeilge. That would be another thing. Obviously, one that I know a lot of people use is Curp Idzachas, especially for a Múinteoir Clíona and for urraithe and stuff like that. Another thing that I really like to use it for is Aline. So whatever topic I'm doing as Gaeilge, I would generally do something based on that using Aline. And so you have the opportunity to use colours, to use whatever folklore. For example, if I was doing Áisina, like kind of things you find in the town, you make a little village out of cereal boxes or whatever, and you have them writing the names of the buildings there. Drámaíocht, I know that's a huge one that people mostly really use Gaeilge for drámaíocht, but I mean, it's not to be underestimated. I think it's an oldie, but it's a goodie. But on rud is tábhachtaí ná an rud is fear latsa, I think, nor husnaín tú, is to pick whatever subject your favorite subject is. We all have our favorite subjects to teach. I mean, that's just calling a spade a spade. Agus Gomíonn tú an can sinna úsáid le Gaeilge a bhúna, mar má hatnín topic nu ábhar leat hain go mór, agus má chuirn tú Gaeilge seach leis, kind of that's the way that you're going to engage them. Even if you're not as confident in your Gaeilge, if you have confidence in a specific subject area, then use that to teach Gaeilge, más níon that. So obviously, my first one is praise and extrinsic rewards. I think that's important at primary level, maybe at secondary level, not so much. And to show, like I said, to show interest in the subject. And if you, like a huge problem is the teacher's own confidence in their own competence. Like sometimes you kind of have to fake it until you make it, because you don't want to be presenting lack of confidence in front of the children, because that's not what inspires children to learn. But having said that, I think a huge thing that I've learned, and this wouldn't be now for Gaeilge, but for be with other subjects, is to be really, really honest about it. Like, children respect honesty beyond anything else, and so talk about your own experiences at school. Like my hats and Gaeilge laugh. Great, talk about that. And if you found it hard, just be like, do you know what? I actually found Gaeilge really hard in school, so I understand like exactly what things are like now, and it can be kind of tricky sometimes, but here's what I use to help learn that. Because like if you are like you're lacking confidence in it, like you're going to be going on some of the journey with them like yourself. So I think it's important to talk about your own experience with it. Like they always ask you that, what was your favorite thing in school? Like children are extremely curious about their teachers as much as teachers are curious about the children. So if you have a positive experience with Gaeilge, great. And if you're negative one, like be honest about it, but be kind of like, well, actually now, because you can learn from me, because I used to think that, but actually now I know that's not the case. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, again, like you said, a growth mindset. Because children appreciate honesty above anything else. And my big thing is ditch the books wherever possible. I don't mean to be Cavanusser, but books can be boring. The Gaeilge books, some of them can be boring enough as an adult, I find, to read them myself. So focus on Gaeilge leabhartha, because that's how children are going to learn language. You don't learn your native language through rote learning and books and pointing Céirde sin, what's that, what's that, what's that. We learn it from listening to it and living it and using it daily. Having said that as well, don't be afraid of rote learning. There's some things that just have to be learned off, and that's just the case. So I think it's always good to use a mix, like you were saying about like how parents were seeing that like school has changed so much. I think there's still some valuable things that might have been when I was in school or when any of us were in school. So you bring those pieces along with you, the pieces that work for you, and then kind of integrate it with what is best practice at the moment.